This is first night about Mexico.
Yeah,
I want to get back.
I understand.
I sent out, yeah.
All right. All right.
Great, everybody, welcome. We have a echo coming out of your computer. I
Okay,
think,
sorry
so
about
mute
that. I'm gonna shut that down.
Welcome to the October regular monthly meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. We will start by calling the roll. Reg Foster is here.
Ed Scheidler.
And so we have a quorum of 3. Jim Flanagan will be back.
Can't hear it.
It is.
Well, it's the season.
Can you mute me, please? That might help. I need to turn it on.
Testing.
You're.
Yeah.
Get your Google Translator. What language?
Yeah, do touch that button there. There.
Thank you, Reg. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Okay.
Still a little bit of an echo.
All right. We're still getting a little bit of an echo through there. We want to keep that running. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sweetheart.
And,
Get yourself something.
all right,
You got it?
testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. All right, we are going to start the meeting. Commissioner Flanagan will be joining us in a few minutes. He had a business trip out in Wyoming, I think. And I just was informed before the meeting that Commissioner Bennett was feeling ill, wouldn't make it tonight. So, but we do still have a quorum. Thank you, Ed and Penny. And we have guests tonight that have been moved up to the front of the agenda. So with the permission of, or the consent or the indulgence of our residents, I think we'll do our visitors first and then go into the regular agenda with our resident input. The first one here is Matt Zajac of the Cambridge Housing Authority. Matt, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Matt, the floor is yours to talk about the RAD Section 18 application submission and the accompanying CPA funding application that is tied to that. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everybody. As Reg said, Matt Zajac, Deputy Director for Planning at the Cambridge Housing Authority and the NHA's development consultant for its modernization effort at Seabeds and Cook. So I have 2 agenda items tonight. One is informational to lead up to a vote next week, and one is, I believe, for a vote. So the informational one relates to the Section 18 RAD conversion at Seabeds and Cook. As the board members will likely recall from my previous appearances, we originally started the modernization plan for Seabeds and Cook with this idea of converting from public housing to the Section 8 program through a blend of the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, RAD, and Section 18. And then we pivoted to a different strategy, which was the Section 22 program. Benefit of the Section 22 program is that it would have allowed the agency to access 100% high value vouchers for its portfolio, to also convert High Rock homes, and to do so in an expedited fashion. Unfortunately, after we had submitted our application to HUD, we received notification from them that they have effectively closed the Section 22 program. This is based on a legal proceeding from elsewhere in the country. And as a result, HUD has been moving applicants to the Section 22 program back to the RAD Section 18 program. This is what they encouraged us to do on a phone call. And as a result, we are putting together the application materials to essentially resubmit the application that we previously did for Seabeds and Cook. The new detail here is that HUD indicated that they will be in the early part of 2025, likely rolling out a new version of that program. That new version of the program would increase the percentage of units that you can get high value vouchers from 80% to 90%. That's beneficial both because it creates more income and because it preserves more of the housing authority's fair cloth. As a reminder, you only get fair cloth units in relation to those high value units, not for the RAD units. So we have held one resident meeting so far to inform tenants of this switch. I thought it was a really engaging conversation last week at Seabeds. We will have a second resident meeting next week. And then after those two meetings have occurred, the board will be asked to approve the submission of the Section 18/RAD application. I am happy to take any questions that the board may have on the plan.
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry, questions for the board members, but what is the?
No, I have no idea what he's talking about. We live here. We don't know a lot of that stuff. I want to know in a simple breakdown how this is going to affect Linden and Chambers.
It does not affect Linden and Chambers at all.
So what is this all about
This
then?
is about renovating Seabeds and Cook.
Okay, so we don't even have to be here. I can just
You're
go home.
welcome to be here, but this is the first agenda item on our agenda here. Do you have a copy of the agenda? Maybe Jim has.
Oh, I may have to find it at home,
Anyway,
but the thing is,
I will let you know when this is not a meeting for Linden Chambers residents. This is a board meeting.
in otherwise.
And we have
should
many,
not
excuse
come
me.
here.
No, not at all. We glad you're here, but yeah, you're invited to come to the board meeting, but we cover many other things here. And the first one we're covering is this agenda item, so.
Yeah, it's an
We will-
agency-wide meeting.
We will get to a point where we're gonna be inviting comment from people here, but it's not quite yet, okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No
I'm
worries.
sorry.
I understand you didn't understand, so.
You want to look at the
Speaking on
agenda?
on her behalf. if I
No,
may,
I'm
no,
not
no,
asking you to speak on
Thank
your
you,
behalf.
Ross.
Thank you.
I'd like you to speak on my behalf.
I'll talk about it later.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Matt has just given a summary. There is a Penny and Ed. As you know, in the board packet, there's a 5 or 6 or 7 page memo, outlining all this. I'm wondering if you have any questions for, Matt, about what's in that memo and what's happened here.
Well, it would seem that we have a choice. If this is what HUD is doing, then we have to go along with it.
That's right. And I see Jim Flanagan has joined us here. So I'm going to promote Jim to being a panelist here. Yes, so we were completely blindsided by this. Apparently there are 15 other agencies. We learned from the HUD meeting, like us, not in Massachusetts, but all over the country, who had all gone down this path because it was opened up in February by HUD. And because it generated a lot more money for us and it generated that money sooner. And then out of the blue, they notified us that towards the end of the summer, we got rumors, but they notified us in September, actually it was after our board meeting, that he'd like to meet with us formally. And we had a big meeting with very senior officials at HUD that said, we're very, very sorry. We got sued last spring. We lost the lawsuit and we have to close down this more lucrative our approach that we have here. So it kind of, you're right, we didn't have any choice. Did you want to add to that, Matt?
No, I think that's a great addition. And if there, barring any other questions from the board, I can dive into the second related agenda item, the CPA application.
So I have Jim Flanagan joining us a little bit late, so I want to note for the minutes that Jim joined us at about 5:15 or so. And thank you. Ed, or Penny, did you have any questions about Matt's presentation?
No, I read it thoroughly. It was well explained, and I don't think we have much choice.
We have been down this path before, as it says, and we're hopeful that they will give us expedited reapproval treatment because we reached an initial approval last February. Jim, hi, welcome from sunny Wyoming, is it?
Wyoming. It is Wyoming, yes.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I followed this along the way, was disappointed, but no fault of anyone on our teams or CHA. The federal government sometimes does pivots, right? And this one perpetuated by the courts. So I think we continue to, we were 18, now 22, back to 18, continue to position this for the greatest benefit to the tenants, current and long term. And so I'm very supportive of it.
Super. Now, Matt, we have also a related CPA funding motion that we are going to be considering here. And before we vote on anything, maybe you can explain why this has come into being.
Absolutely. So in order to move Seabeds and Cook from the public housing program to the RAD and the Section 18 program, Needham Housing Authority needs to conduct a renovation of the property that, in HUD's eyes, positions it to be viable for 20 years. So based on HUD's analysis, we need to address all the capital needs so that that property can continue to serve residents for that period of time. Based on the work that NHA and CHA have done to date with the architect, which is Bargman, Hendry, and Archetype, we believe that that overall project costs about $28 million to conduct. Apologies, $31 million to conduct. And the capital stack for that project is going to be composed of funds from local, state, and maybe federal sources. A key difference from the last time that we talked about the RAD and Section 18 program for Seabeds and Cook is that this time we really don't want the project to involve the use of low-income housing tax credits or bonds. And the reason for that is that it is helpful to the Linden and Chambers project to not have the Seabeds and Cook project also competing for that scarce resource. Additionally, not being competing for that scarce resource will let the Seabeds and Cook project move forward, hopefully on a faster timeline, which will again support Linden and Chambers project occurring. In order to meet that goal of not utilizing the low-income housing tax credit and tax-exempt bonds, it's important for Needham Housing Authority to really work with the local government to maximize Needham's contribution as well as the contributions from the state housing agency. What that looks like today is the request for $5.6 million in CPA funds. The request size is based on a selection of the capital needs at Linden and Chambers. At Seabeds and Cook. As you may know, the CPA funds cannot be used to just rehabilitate properties. They have to preserve the properties. And there's a selection of types of work that have been determined to meet that requirement of preserving the property. Our request, our 5.6 million, relates to those scope items that preserve the property. We think it's really important to seek robust town support in order to, again, achieve the goal of meeting the 20-year capital needs at Seabeds and Cook, and to do so in a way that does not require low-income housing tax credits and can move forward quickly. Happy to take any questions that the board has on the CPA item, which I believe is coming up for a vote today.
Yeah, right after we vote on the RAD application. So again, let me
Reg, just to note that the vote on the RAD application has to be held until after the second resident meeting.
I realize I did, sorry, sense of the committee, let's put it that, sense of the board here. So go ahead. Any questions, Ed and Penny? Penny, go ahead.
Do we have to raise all that money before we get started? And how are we going to raise that much money?
And Ed, if I could just jump in and say, Penny, you noticed that following that memo on page 10 of the packet, there's a spreadsheet that indicates the sources and uses of funds. It's not a spread, a table, but it's right after the last page of the memo that we were just discussing. Go ahead, Matt.
Great, thanks, Reg. So, we do have to raise all those funds before we're able to start. And I think the good news is that the lion's share of the funds come from one source, which is securing a mortgage for the property. That mortgage, which is backed up by the higher income that the vouchers provide, is about 21 million of the 31 million that we need. So securing that source leaves a gap that will be filled by a combination of state and local funding applications. The CPA request is, let's say roughly 50% of that gap. And then the balance will come from a series of applications that we will make over the next year. So for instance, we expect there to be a funding round for the DOER program this November, and that could produce several million of the funding we need. So it'll be a process to assemble it, but the puzzle pieces are there and just ready to be assembled.
Thank
So
you.
just to add to what Matt said, if you look at page 4 of the memo or page 7 of the packet, you'll see it. Oh no, not page 4, page 3 of the memo and 6 of the packet. What you'll see is that we're bringing in, by doing this RAD Section 18 application, about 1.5 million more per year than we're getting today, on top of what we're getting today. So if you take almost all of that, you take $1.4 million a year and commit it to a 40-year mortgage, in essence, which is that first line on the page 10, you get a nearly $21 million loan. And then you take that loan and you invest it in upgrading all the properties, all the plans that we have for Seabeds and Cook.
That question?
Not yet.
What are you reading from?
A board packet, yes.
What page?
It's page 10 in the packet.
Yes. So, that's,
And one other,
yeah, go ahead.
and one other note is that about $1.1 million of the funding are things that you already have or control. So a good chunk of change has already been secured for the project.
More questions, Ed and Penny, and then I'll go to you, Jim.
No, I don't have any questions.
I think we should say also, I mean, we have this visibility of the funding. We still have to do a lot of work, like Matt said, and this is going to change over time. And if we're applying for $5.9 million of CPA funding, doesn't mean that we're going to get $5.9 million of CPA funding, because we have to go through the whole town process that starts November first, it doesn't end until town meeting votes on whatever the CPC recommends. So this is the,
Oh, I have
after.
You can
that.
have it.
No, it's 4 through 10 that's missing.
No.
So excuse me, Ross.
Oh,
Excuse me, Ross.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Great.
Sorry there.
Jim, you're up.
Yeah, just interesting as a town meeting member too, and taking that perspective. So this means we're going to be making a total ask, which is required. We need it, of 5.9 million. And positioning that, but that can take, we're hoping for approval right off the bat. That'd be great. But by making that ask, we're positioning that need to be met potentially over time. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And another thing that might happen is we're just receiving as we speak in the last 48 hours, the updated cost estimates for the 100% schematic design, and those cost estimates came in higher than what we were predicting at the 50% design. So we haven't even begun looking at that, but that could change.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to get paranoid about everything, that mortgage at 5.9484%, that the interest rates could go back up, and then you don't get 21 million, you get less than 21 million, or they may go down, and to 5%, and you can get more than 21 million. So there's a lot of moving parts in this that will unfold over the next few months.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. If there's no questions on this further, as Matt pointed out, and we have to have two resident meetings before the board votes on this. And we have to get this application in by November 1st in order to get the preferred RAD rents for our fair cloth units that we're freeing up. So the meeting is scheduled on Monday because you have to have them a certain amount of time apart. So I'm going to be asking the board to pick a special board meeting date. Not right now, because there are a couple other reasons to have it as well, next week or early the following week. But in any event, before the 1st of November. So that 28th is the Monday, the 28th could be then, but we don't want to cut it too close here. And then also needing to be submitted by November 1st is the CPA preliminary eligibility application. It's in your board packet that follows this table that I just referred to. So it starts on page 11, I guess, of the board packet, and for a couple of 3 pages, which basically makes the, Reader's Digest version of why we are asking for the $5.6 million additional ask from the CPA funding. Is the board comfortable taking a vote to approve the CPA funding application tonight, or would you like to do them both at the special board meeting we'll be having next week or on October 28th, Monday?
I'm okay with tonight.
All right.
I'm okay with tonight.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the CPA funding application in your board packet substantially as it exists there. And authorize the executive director and the chair to submit it by the deadline November 1st. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Flanagan. Any further
Is that in
discussion?
the package?
Excuse me, Ross, I'm in the middle of a vote. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes yes.
Jim Flanagan votes yes.
Ed Scheidler votes yes.
Penny Kirk votes yes.
And Commissioner Bennett is absent tonight. So yes, you were ahead of question, Ross.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks. Is that in the packet?
I don't know what you have in your hands.
Well, I
Yeah,
have the packet that was.
I don't know what
Yes,
you have
it's
in
in
your
the
hands.
packet,
okay?
Bob.
Well, I'm looking for the app, where
So-
is the app in paper, hard
The-
copy?
It's in the packet,
yes,
yes.
it's page, I'll tell you what page.
All right, so now,
11.
Matt, I think we're done with you and we're going to invite our,
Thanks,
so
everyone.
thank you very much and
Happy night.
have the evening. I'm gonna promote we're gonna turn to the next agenda item that we're taking out of, first, just as a courtesy to our guests and have our auditors join us. I'm promoting you to panelists here. So let's see if that works. Great. Andrew, we see you
Can you hear me too?
and we hear you. Yes.
Awesome. Technology works today.
Don't jinx us because we still got to wait for Tim here. He should be. Yeah, he's there. There he is. We see Tim Marciati.
Hello.
Ciati. Hey, we can hear you. Great. At the last board meeting, the board discussed and received and approved the High Rock Homes. Well, we've done that before. We'd received the High Rock Homes LLC audit for 2023 and also the Needham Housing Authority audit for 2023, which came in a little bit late this year, but has now been completed. And it had noted some concerns that in the Needham Housing Authority one and High Rock Hose one, and the board thought would be appropriate to invite you tonight here, Tim, as our auditor, and Andrew, to just sort of outline, what you found, whether you feel we're on the right path for correction, and to entertain any questions from the commissioners on the audit. So, Tim, over to you.
Great. My name is Tim Marchanti. I'm a supervisor in the Providence office. And I worked here with Andrew Remus. He's a senior manager out of the Boston office. And I'll let Andrew take it over. I think he has a nice, pretty little presentation for us.
Yes. Could you provide me with the ability to share my screen? I just threw together a quick PowerPoint that kind of walks through the audit, and then I can answer any questions that the board may have.
Here we go. Go ahead. You should be able to do it here. There, that works. We can see you and it's on our big screen TV here. So go ahead.
So thank you for having Tim and myself tonight. We just have a brief PowerPoint to go over the Needham Housing Authority's 2023 audit, which, as Reg mentioned, we wrapped up last month. So our audit is essentially a two-part audit. The first is an audit of the authority's financial statements, which also includes High Rock Homes as a component unit. And then the second part of our audit is a compliance audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. So this covers your federal award programs. And for 2023, the program that we looked at was the Housing Choice Voucher Program. For our audit results on the financial statements, we had an unmodified or clean opinion. That is to say that the numbers and activity for the year presents fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also did not identify any matters of non-compliance with rules or regulations, but we did identify one kind of a deficiency in internal controls that when we brought it up to Cheryl and her team, kind of I would imagine would be corrected shortly thereafter. So what we noted was essentially two parts on areas for improvement. The first related to user access in the authority's accounting software. So as part of understanding the authority, we looked at its internal controls, both how you process, rent payments, process checks, as well as the authority's IT controls. And what we noted was essentially a former employee or an employee who was no longer employed by the authority was not marked as inactive in the accounting software. However, with this, we didn't see any activity or that the employee used the access. It's more so they just were not marked as inactive. So kind of as a best practice is, when an employee leaves employment, to have some kind of, HR or personnel checklist to essentially, go through the list and make sure that, email has been turned off, access to whatever applications has been removed, just as a best practice, and to prevent, if there was like a bad actor, which it was not this case, that, they would not be able to continue to access the accounting software. And when we mentioned it to Cheryl, I believe that she had started to or was in the process of putting together kind of a checklist to hit all those key points to make sure that when someone leaves, that they no longer have access that they shouldn't have. And then the other kind of point that we identified was with some of the year-end adjustments, there's not a formal review process. And as a result, there was an error related to one of the post-employment health insurance accrual, where a number was, instead of recording it as a positive, it was recorded as a negative, which resulted in us having to make a fairly large dollar value entry. However, it's purely from an accounting perspective. It's not that the authority paid a bill that it shouldn't have. It's kind of just for the financial statement purposes. So those were kind of the two items that came to note as a result of our audit. And kind of in discussing the final audit report with Cheryl, believe that both those matters have been corrected either in September or in early October. So that kind of covered the financial statements and internal controls. We also looked at compliance with the.
Moment, Cheryl was thinking asked her to confirm what you just said about corrections there.
I think I did I sent the corrective action memo to Tim, and I had it in the board's packet last month as well.
So that's taken care of, I guess.
Yeah, so we don't have any, ongoing concerns about those matters. When we mentioned it to Cheryl, she addressed them quickly, so it should not be an issue going forward.
Great. Onward then.
So the second part of our audit, the compliance audit, in accordance with uniform guidance, and this covered the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So we looked at a sample of invoices and payments made from the Section 8 program, along with tenant files. So kind of a broad, encompassing look at the program overall. And we did not have any deficiencies in internal control over compliance or matters of non-compliance noted. So overall, the compliance aspect was a clean audit.
Super. I know Jim has to leave quickly at around 5:45, so I wanted to see if he has any questions, but go ahead and do the financial highlights here.
Yep. So now I just moving on some brief financial highlights. So the first thing I wanted to point out
Can you make that a little
essentially
bigger? It's a little hard for us to see on the screen. If you could just blow that up a little bit, yeah. There, perfect.
Oh,
better.
One more than from there. There, right there.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
kind of small to try to make it fit on the one slide is
Oh,
tough.
it fits. Yeah, it fits.
Yeah. So the kind of one bullet point I wanted to point out at the summary of net position, which is essentially the authority's balance sheet at December 31st, 23 compared to the prior year, is the current ratio. And the current ratio is a measure of liquidity and is calculated as current assets divided by current liabilities. So this is how easily the housing authority can meet its current obligations. So in 2023, it was 3.36, which was a decrease from 2022. However, any current ratio over 2 is a healthy ratio. So even though it decreased during the year, having the current ratio above 2, which means that the authority could, pay all its current liabilities twice over, it is a very healthy ratio. So no real concerns with liquidity for the authority. And the other bullet point here is looking at the bottom here, this unrestricted net position. This is essentially the net balance after, paying all liabilities and backing out the proportion of assets that are invested in capital assets. So this is really the liquid portion of your equity balance. And it's a positive 63,000, which generally housing authorities in Massachusetts, this will be a deficit due to the need to record the long-term pension and post-employment health insurance. So showing a positive number here kind of illustrates the healthy financial position of the authority. And now looking at the summary of revenues and expenses, which is essentially the income statement, you'll see that operating revenues increased by $478,000 compared to the prior year. And this was kind of due to 2 factors. The first is in 2023, the authority was awarded a family self-sufficiency and a Ross grant from HUD. So that's a new source of funding that was primarily used for tenant services during the current year. And the second is a increase in Section 8 subsidies. And with the increase in Section 8 subsidies, this was essentially a wash, because if you see below the housing assistance payments expense, so this is what the authority pays to landlords on behalf of participants in the Section 8 program, that expense increased by 200,000 or 11% compared to the prior year. And this was primarily just due to increases in contract rents in the town of Needham. The other large kind of expense changes were, the first was in admin, and included in this is a large number or a large amount of consulting and pre-development expenses associated with your redevelopment projects that are still in the planning phases. And then the last bullet point I had here was the increase in tenant services expense, which is kind of also a wash with the new FSS and Ross grants. I believe that is it.
So on that previous slide, if you want to go back one there, I don't know if this is possible or not, or advisable, but should we, since we're going to be having even more of those consulting expenses in 2024, should we be considering breaking out a separate line for that as opposed to burying it in admin? Or is that, it's not buried in the audits, I realize, but maybe it's just in the way you summarized it for us.
Let me see, because I think we can break it out going forward. I think it makes sense to kind of distinguish between the costs that you're incurring for these projects compared to, the routine operating admin. I think it makes sense from a transparency point of view that it should be, that we can break it out.
When you do the 24 audit, you can put in the notes, they'll break out the 23 and maybe the 22, so we kind of can look back and say, we can sort of see how that's grown very substantially from 22 to 24, which it has. And it's not just that Cheryl has added 25 people to her staff and the admin has gone up
That's not true.
dramatically.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So
No, that makes perfect sense to me, and I'll make a note for next year to do that.
why don't we take down your screen share for a second, and let me turn to, again, Penny and Ed to see if you have any questions for Andrew or Tim, or comments. You're on mute, but it looks like both of you shook your head and said no, so, yeah.
Sorry about that.
We do
Yeah.
not.
And Jim Flanagan apologizes again. He has a new job and they have an off-site retreat where they're planning the future of the universe for his new company, his new gig, and so could only break out a brief period of time. But I'll ask him afterwards if he has any follow-up questions. He saw most of your presentation there, Andrew. I think he's satisfied. So, Cheryl, do you have any final comments you want to make, and then we'll move back to our regular agenda?
No, I, as I said before and in the past, I absolutely appreciate the audit report. It's very thorough. I find that anything that I don't understand, I'm able to go to Tim and he's very responsive to my questions. We had a meeting recently, him and Andrew and the other gentleman, I can't think of his name, about the material weaknesses. And I explained at that meeting, as we said earlier, what we will do as an agency to correct that. But I absolutely just appreciate the work that goes into this report.
Great. I guess I have a closing question for you, building on what you said, Andrew, at the very end. I believe Markham audits about, what, 80 PHAs in the New England region or something like that? Is that right?
Yes, it's a substantial number, and they kind of range from, on the very small side to housing authorities in large cities.
So you were, I think it would be great if you sent us your slides afterwards to Cheryl, and we'll pass around to the board. But I would ask, again, not a precise answer, but just a qualitative answer, which is, you mentioned that those ratios are fairly financially healthy. Over the entire 80 universe that you do, plus or minus 80, and they range from small to large, I realize. So I'm more interested for the ones that are our size, which is, sort of middle size, not the Boston Housing Authority or whoever, large ones who do. I mean, where do we fall in terms of financial health? Are we in the top 10 percentile, bottom 10 percentile, right in the middle, or what?
So I would say it's tricky to kind of judge just looking at the numbers, because like in this year, the current ratio went down, but that's also due to the authority spending $400,000 or $500,000 on the consulting and pre-development costs that, it impacts like the cash you have on hand now, but it's for the greater good of the agency, 2 or 3 years down the road. So it's tough to kind of put you in a bucket where it's comparing, like if an agency is not undergoing these redevelopment projects, well, they may have more cash on hand, but if you're kind of just sitting on the cash, it's not really benefiting the agency in the long run. So that's why I kind of like to focus on just having the ratio above the the set amount of 2, which shows that, while you're still undergoing this, substantial project, you can still, or it hasn't impacted your ability to meet day-to-day operations.
Okay, fair enough. It's always a question of apples to apples and oranges and tangerines, to, that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
so.
you could look at, 2 housing authorities that have the same number of units, same vouchers, but what they're doing is totally different. So they're really not necessarily, comparables.
Where I was sort of going again qualitatively is we are pushing the envelope over in the last 3 years, but particularly 23 and 24. And it's not just business as usual. And so making sure that we don't put the pedal to the metal too much is, obviously a concern the board needs to stay on top of here and make sure that we always take care of what I call mission number 1, which is our existing tenants, our existing units, our existing bricks and mortar, and making sure that we have the financial resources not only to be an excellent landlord on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis now, but also the kind of reserves you need when something happens, when something goes wrong, like a storm or a bad snowstorm or something like that. That 2015 snowstorm that started collapsing roofs all over the area, that sort of thing. So that's the context of my question. Okay, well, we'll let you go. And thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, we are now going to go back to our normal agenda, which starts at the top with resident comment. And I see one hand up online, but always start off with anybody in the room here and then we'll switch off to the online. Go ahead, Jim.
On behalf of Marlene Costa.
May I ask you to maybe come sit up front because we have this speakerphone here and we've discovered over time that it works, within a radius of 10 or 15 or 20 feet, but not all the way back.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's a good seat?
that's a perfect seat right there.
On behalf of Marlene Costa, she is inquiring about the online rental payment. Apparently, it's been down for 6 months and she was wondering, is there a time frame?
So there was the company that we use working with our PHA web software had some incidences that occurred that caused, in my opinion, a hardship to some of our residents in that their system was down and they charged our residents' accounts multiple times trying to correct it. And they were also reluctant to correct the situation. I don't want to be in that situation again. They do have another software that we could use. However, it is my goal to not use them. I don't want to be in that situation where something goes wrong with the software company that we use and it presents a hardship to our residents. So we are developing another method to establish the online payment system. I'm working with our accountants on that process. It's a little bit more upfront work because residents will need to complete a form and submit some information, but it will be a system that will be more secure than what has been in the past.
Okay, so I can report back, you're working on it.
We're working on a more secure system
Okay.
for online payments.
Second request from Marlene, she spotted a mouse on 2 occasions. I was a witness to the second occasion.
Oh.
One was in the kitchen area and then ran into the sitting area where the 2 lounge chairs are.
Okay.
And just to make you aware of, we got a new friend in the house.
Yeah, so always call the office, put in that work order. But I will let our guys know. I'm sure they're aware of it and have already reached out to our pest control company.
Okay,
It's that time of the year, so they're gearing up.
right.
The
For
change
these
of
little-
seasons is what happens, change of season.
Yeah, these little furry creatures like to go indoors.
Be warm.
Yeah, so, yeah, we do have a good relationship with our pest control people, so we'll, I'm sure that's already in process, but I will, mention it to my director of maintenance and, always put in a work
Okay.
order because that creates a record. And so we have a record that, it was completed,
All right,
so,
thank you.
yeah.
That's it.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna go to Sue Biazizo. Sue, we should be able to hear you. If you
Muted.
unmute yourself.
You
There
can
we
hear me
are.
now?
You can, yes.
Okay. Actually, two things. I've noticed that further on in the meeting, there's going to be a review of our pet policy and grievance policy. Now, with so many meetings we've had about all kinds of stuff, I'm a little bit confused. I thought that our residents were going to have a chance to look at these draft policies before any vote or, review is taken by the Board of Commissioners. And I could be mistaken. It's only happened to me once before, but I'll admit it. And the other thing is, looking at our lease just before the meeting, we've had folks up here at Seabeds complain that they just got notified last night that they were going to have inspections today. Just routine, quick inspections, no repair work or anything. And I know that the post office has been very slow, has been getting mail out very, very late in the evening. But folks are supposed to be given a 2-day notice for something like this. And I'm thinking, these notices, I guess, were postmarked the 10th, which was last Thursday, and they just got them last night. I'm thinking until the post office, gets quicker than mailing out these notices at least a day or two ahead, prior to like the 10th, that people would not get so upset if they did get them at least 2 days in advance. Either that or, I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you the way it is. Me, I don't care, but a lot of folks are upset when they come home from work and they get this notice and they've started cleaning and, I don't know, but I just wanted to pass it on. And that's all I have to say.
Any comment, Charles?
So in terms of the pet policy and the policies that are listed on the agenda, you are correct. We are waiting for resident comments for those policies. They are not in the packet. It was our plan to review them at our next RAB board meeting on
Okay,
the 21st of October.
over.
In an effort to give people more opportunity to review and have questions. So they're done. We've vetted them, we've worked them out, but
Mhm.
they will come up before the board next month at a public hearing on our 5-year and an annual plan.
Okay,
And in terms of the notice, those notices did go out on the 10th and yes, our post office is sort of, a little annoyed with us, I think, when they have large mailings from us, which is often. But oftentimes people don't get to their mailboxes, either. So, after the fact, and then they get a notice and they're not happy about it. But this notice was about it's relative to our submission of the RAD Section 18 application. We needed to have, the, contractor or consultant rather, inspect the units as part of the application submission. So they actually only needed to do 25% of the units, which amount to 19 in total of the 76 units. So not every unit was inspected, only 19. And also they really were concerned with the accessible units, both at Seabeds and Captain Robert Cook Drive. So that's what that was all about.
Okay, they inspected mine without a problem, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Greg was there with them. He probably thought that you were a good one to go in and inspect. Everybody got the notice so that we wouldn't get pushback. We didn't have the time to pick and select which units needed to be inspected. Everyone got the notice, and so everyone was up for grabs.
Yeah, I invited them all in. The guy was here for maybe 90 seconds, you know, and that was it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Ross, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the LTO, we're in the process of setting up the bank account. And hopefully that'll proceed okay. It's mostly on our side now. We got to get, there was a question, do we have to submit social security numbers to the bank? So there are a lot of niggling little details that people are going to worry about as individuals. So we got to answer all those questions and we'll do it. So we're also looking at other rules and regulations regarding participation. For instance, there is a provision that, or I guess it's, I want to repeat myself here, but I believe we're allowed to speak on agenda items as the meeting goes through. Now, you may want to elaborate on that, make it more detailed and so forth, but that appears to be one of the rules and regulations. So
You're
we'd like
right.
to have that clarified.
It is, you're right. But it's on the agenda items that, pertain to tenants. If it's an agenda item that doesn't, then,
Well, I think almost everything will. Certainly of
I'm
interest
just
to the
quoting
residents.
you. I haven't read the regulation for a long time. I'm just stating it for the record. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And I'm stating for the record that everything is of our interest. We have a right to all information and documents and things like that. So it's for instance, Peabody is sort of taking over the role that Housing Authority, the Cambridge Housing Authority used to do. And I really think that they should include the residents at Chambers Street. I'm hearing things like the Chambers work is not going to be done until later, years from now. Well, all this time until Chambers happens, that is the construction, that's all pre-development. We could be doing a lot of pre-development work from now until 5 or however many years. And what I'm hearing is we aren't going to look at Chambers Street until 5 years from now. So that's.
So I think you misunderstood that they are not under contract at all to do anything about Chambers Street. And they're just saying we won't be getting to Chambers Street for 5 years, but I'm sure no problem inviting Chambers Street residents to come to all the Linden Street resident, all resident, we treat ourselves as one community is what you're saying. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. And there's nothing to prohibit the residents from doing design work and so forth on a project like this. We live here, we're interested, and we're gonna do that sort of thing. Let's see. There is we're developing the library. Again, there's a box over there, and that reappeared with a request of where's our information. I believe the Housing Authority is supposed to provide documents and public information that relates to Housing Authority policies and whatever at all the developments, if possible. So I think it's possible. And, we'd like to follow through on that. And we're, entering into discussions, what I'm calling the steering committee has met with Cheryl once, and we'd like to meet with her as often as useful for her There are requirements that say things like, the executive director or a designee is required to meet with the residents every 3 months. Well, I'm viewing it as, no, we aren't looking at bottom line compliance. We're looking at being useful. And as long as we're useful to Cheryl and participating and doing what we need to do and what she feels is necessary, then we're gonna do that as much as possible. And we've got a second meeting set up. So we'll continue that, and discussing things like the library, the office, where's the office gonna be, and so on. Let's see, regarding Mary Ellen's, question. One of the things, there was a discussion about, the meetings. One of the observations was that they're too long and maybe a little unstructured. It was a slight conversation. There were no rules and regulations established. But one of the observations was, if you have things that are related to the tenants up front, they'll be here, they'll listen, and then they'll get bored and be gone. So I think that issue is related to why she was confused. She wanted to hear about what was here, and if we do those things up front, then she'll be happy. She's here, she wants to hear about these things. Now she's gone, so anyway.
Just want you to know, the first agenda item was about for something the tenants are interested in, but it wasn't the Linden Chambers tenants. It
Oh,
was
exactly, but
Seabeds
Mary
and
Ellen.
Cook,
Go ahead.
Seabeds and Cook tenants, so.
Yeah.
So, but it was a tenant oriented thing that we did do as our agenda. She wasn't interested in it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I'm
You
very
were
interested.
quite interested in
Oh,
it.
I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah,
interested
so,
because a lot of things that are happening over there some of it might happen here.
yeah.
So of course we're interested, but Mary Ellen's not interested, now maybe she was.
We probably can't fine tune it
No.
on an individual tenant basis, unfortunately.
Yeah, but generally, if we're meeting here, well, anyway, okay,
As you said, the tenants are interested in everything, so everything on this agenda is of interest
yeah,
by definition.
but again, if it's Linden Chambers, she's gonna relate to it a little bit more. She might want to talk about potholes or something. How does she squeeze that into, a Seabeds Captain Cook discussion? She's not. So, I observed that, a lot of things that are listed here on the table of contents, thank you very much, are not in the package. Page 10 to 14, is missing. The part about Markham's, or Milne, Shaw, whatever, pages, 48 to 57, missing. And, we'd like to keep on top of that. So, we hope to have a library here where we've got all the documents written down so that people can look at it. And sometimes it's a good idea to compare one against the other. Like I'm going to go to the digital copy to see if it's included there. If it's included there, fine. I'll maybe make a paper copy for myself. I'm willing to do that. But let's see. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to some necessary but boring things that we have to do here. We are agenda item C, Penny and Ed. So review and approve the NHA bill schedule and check warrant. You'll find in your packet for an amazing $750,000, $762,907.98. I will make a motion to approve that. Do I hear a second? Second by Penny. You're on mute, but any questions from the treasurer or Penny?
No.
No questions. I have no questions, and hearing no further comments, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
And that passes 3-0 with 2 absent here. Second is approve the approve the HRH LLC bill schedule and check warrant of $37,096.65. I'm making a motion that we approve that.
I second it.
Second from the treasurer. Any comments or questions on that one? Penny and Ed?
No.
No.
Hearing none, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Scheidler votes aye.
Annie Kirk votes aye.
And that's approved 3-0 with 2 absences here. We come to agenda item D, the board meeting minutes for our last month, September 19th, 2021. I make a motion that we approve those minutes.
I second it.
And then any comments or typos or anything from our official proofreaders in Rosemary Place here? None. I will just say again for the record, how much I appreciate the high quality talents of our minute writer, now that I don't have to do it. I will make a motion. I made the motion to approve. I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Annie Kirk votes aye.
Okay, we are on executive director's reports, information and discussion. Over to you, Carol.
Okay. I think can I refer to, Mr. Chair, the email from Commissioner Scheidler?
Sure, there's a glitch in
A
page
glitch.
51.
Page 51.
Commissioner Scheidler noted, I noticed it as well earlier this afternoon. In a mysterious glitch. And while you're looking for it, I'll just summarize for where on the Linden and Chambers profit and loss statement. Out of the blue, one of the variances, instead of saying something like $7,273, it said the variance was $107,273 or $8 here.
Yeah,
I don't know why that occurred. You probably don't either.
I
This-
absolutely do not. And had put in a call to my fee accountant, hopefully to get an answer before
Yeah.
a meeting, but he was not available.
In theory, those should be all just auto calculated, so there must be a
Yeah,
spreadsheet there or something there.
yeah. So, I will continue to work
Yeah.
and get that information from, Rick Shaw.
Okay, and what you will also notice on this is there's some significant overages and underages
Mhm.
on our state program, and maybe this is a good time to bring up a second reason that we need to have a special board meeting next week.
Okay.
We need to amend the budget, in other words,
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry.
yes, and we have a deadline for that.
Yes, so there are, there is a budget revision that is required by EOHLC by November 1st. And the overage is relating to our maintenance, maintenance salary line item. And the schedule based on the budget spreadsheet. I don't know how to explain this, but our guys are actually based on labor and industry standards in the correct category that they should be in. And they had not been that way for years, for quite some time. And so this budget reflects the salaries that they should, that the job descriptions that should be, that are the correct job descriptions for them. And they receive the salary based on labor and industry, which is different. So for example, our newest employee was designated as a trainee, and he was a trainee for the entire year of his first year of employment. And then we moved him up a category. There was another employee that is a licensed carpenter, and we moved him into the correct category based on labor and industry standards. And so it actually pushed the salary line item for our maintenance staff over a little bit. My fee accountant isn't concerned about that because going forward, for our next budget, discussions, based on the governor's, new mandate that maintenance can receive administrative, salary increases along with the rest of the staff, they are now in the category that they should be in. And that will make it easier for us as we go forward and factor in those increases. I hope that's clear.
It's
And
clear,
if you have any
though,
questions.
we lost Penny
I
and-
have a question.
No,
Sure.
your camera's off, I see, okay. Yes, go ahead, Penny.
It's on page 52. 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth item down on the top square there. The community room renovations, does that refer to Seabed's Way or Chambers?
Oh, this is the state budget for Chambers, and that money, is actual cost, as you can see, but we received money from our legislature representative Denise Garlick, of 75,000. She earmarked 75K for us to renovate the community room. We only spent 52,968.
That was my,
Yeah, but that number does not affect our subsidy. It's not being charged against our subsidy. It's charged against this earmark funding that we received.
so what happens to that other money?
The balance, the difference, that we did not spend
Yes.
goes back to the state.
Didn't we talk about buying a piano?
Maybe we did, but we didn't have the time to vet that out, in order to spend this money. This money needed to be spent by the 30th, which is their fiscal year end, June 30th, fiscal year end. And so
Well,
that's what happened.
referencing the Yamaha that I own, and it's a wonderful instrument, and you really didn't have to do very much more than that to just buy it. I'm disappointed because that room could use a piano.
Well, maybe we can find another way to fund it. Penny, do you know how much it's worth in terms of purchasing it?
I wouldn't have used up all the money. I think I spent 1,500 on, it's an electric Yamaha.
Why don't we talk about that offline? Because I'm thinking of a source of funding that you wouldn't know about.
Okay.
I mean, to interrupt, I got a free piano, Baldwin, perfect condition.
You have one?
We've spoken about that. Yeah,
Oh,
ready to
okay.
be delivered.
All right. Well, I don't know whether electric versus, real piano is the
You want a
right
real
answer,
piano.
but,
Oh, definitely think so. I have another question though.
go ahead.
C3. It says, down near the bottom, it says Cook's after school donations, 9,250. What are those, where did that come from?
So that's part of your reserves. You have it, you get that report every month. But that 9,250 includes 4,250 from the Needham Education Foundation, 4,000 from Needham Bank, and 1,000 from Babson College.
Well, that Needham Bank and Needham Ed was not just specifically for the after-school program. And I did talk to both entities about that. That money can be spent as part of the enrichment programming that we've been doing.
Yeah, they were donated to Needham Housing Authority.
Right. But not just to the Cook's after-school program.
Well, that's my decision.
What page are you referring to?
63, and that sort of tags in with what I've been asking you, Cheryl, since September 26th for a specific report of income and expenses based on the grants I've been getting.
So I absolutely, I spoke with our attorney about this. I have a concern. It bothers me that you make a you solicit donations, and then you have an expectation on how that money is to be spent. The donations of which we're grateful to have are donated to Needham Housing Authority, placed into our operating accounts, for which I have the responsibility to spend. So, you know, I think we tried to have this conversation before, but it bothers me that you have an expectation on how to spend that money. I don't know, I don't have a precedent for that. So you're raising the money and then you're saying, this is how I want you to spend it. It's a little bit of a conflict for me. So I'm glad we're having this conversation open and public.
Well, I can easily just stop raising the money if I have no input.
I just have a problem with the fact that there's an expectation for input.
Keeps a separate account so that it would be very easy for him to just tell me what has been raised and what has been spent. And I do not have that report. Therefore, I don't know who else to hire or if there's anybody to hire.
We give it to you every month in the form of our reserve account report. So it says local initiative, and in that report, it lists what that monthly expense is, what that monthly income is. Same thing with Cooks After School. It lists the monthly income, the monthly expense. You get it every month.
What does that relate to raising money and looking for input and how it's spent?
I think we're going to have to get much more specific about this. And
Okay, yeah, I just feel very uncomfortable with receiving direction on how to spend the money that is raised on behalf of Needham Housing Authority, deposited into Needham Housing Authority bank account, and then have you expect to spend that money. That's not part of your role of governance. I mean, your role obviously is policy, et cetera, but to have an expectation on how to spend the money based on what you've raised, I have a problem with it. And so I think this all came about because there was a performer that you wanted to engage in, and you wanted to pay them. You mentioned that their cost is $1,200 for a half an hour of their time. And I felt that that was very extravagant. So it's my responsibility to say, this is extravagant. I don't agree with that cost. That's definitely my responsibility to do that.
It would
It's
seem
not
that it is not the responsibility of the commissioners to do a good deed to raise funds for the entertainment of the residents. And for you to say that the person who's putting the effort forth to raise that money should not have any input, to me, is an overstep of your authority. Now, it was suggested a long time ago that the current what's Lori's position? Services coordinator would get involved with submitting these grants, but that services coordinator has made zero effort to learn how to do it.
That's not true. She actually submitted a grant most recently to the local arts council for a program for our residents here in the Chambers Community Room.
Can I ask a question? Is there a difference between providing input and listening to that input and providing direction? Is there a distinction there that's being made here? Yeah, because ultimately the executive director gets input on all matter of things and so forth, but ultimately has to make the final decision. Am I missing something here?
I think there should be regular meetings where we discuss these things.
Well, I frankly think that extra effort, which is a voluntary effort, should be discontinued if any input is to be ignored.
Yes,
And
as I said,
suffers, the residents suffer because we are being told that they really enjoy these entertainment sessions.
well, you know, you're soliciting the money, you're engaging the performers. The residents aren't suggesting what type of performances they'd like to have. You're choosing that for them on their behalf. I am concerned about my role in this, and in my mind, there's a certain amount of impropriety. You raise the money, and then you say, you go and you solicit the money, they make a check out to Needham Housing Authority, and then you come back and say, this is how you spend the money. I honestly I'm very uncomfortable with that practice. Very
Well,
uncomfortable.
We're open to having meetings with you, Cheryl, about it, but I haven't gotten any follow-up in almost a month.
I was told that I do not have to report to you on that. You get it every month in a report. I don't have to. We're so busy. Not only are we so busy, but our financial specialist is out on medical leave. He's only in the office for half days, and we have so many things going on. I cannot give you an accounting based on each donation we receive, that check, and how much was spent against that particular check. We just don't have the time to do that.
Cheryl, I'm going to quote an email that you sent to me on September 30th. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. Salim and I are working on this today. Rick Shaw will be here tomorrow. We will rely on his expertise for accuracy, but I have received nothing.
Yes, you have not.
Well, is there some way we can figure out how to resolve this outside of a public meeting? I don't hear I don't hear the resolution leaping forth, out of this discussion here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that because I was interrupting you.
I said, is there some way we can resolve this difference, outside of this recorded public meeting? Because I don't hear we have other agenda items to get to, and don't seem to be coming to a resolution at this point.
I would very much appreciate a meeting, but I am very glad that it is on public record.
But as I said, I spoke with my attorney, and we do not have to, I do not, as my role as executive director, have to receive direction from you on how to spend the money.
Again, I say I would like a collaborative meeting, Cheryl.
And I would say that there's no recorded recommendation or requirement that commissioners have to raise money for the entertainment of the residents.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the right answer either, right? Right.
Well, it would be nice to have the executive director trying to work with the commissioners instead of saying you have no right for input.
Well, I think.
So I was asked to be a friend of.
I think I heard that there was an input being provided and then a decision to do something different than the input, and which, is ignoring the input, I think, is, as you put it a few minutes ago here. So that's what I hear. I'm just trying to think of this meeting, and it's 6:30, and is there some way we can, see if we can reach a resolution here,
I think
but
we
not
could
at the meeting.
at
No.
Cheryl's convenience.
So I don't hear the resolution happening right now, and so, but we have if you want to continue to discuss it tonight, go
I
ahead.
don't,
No,
but I just said I would like to have a meeting with Cheryl at her convenience and at mine, where I can fit it in, but we'll figure that out.
Right. Request noted, I guess, here. I don't know if it's been accepted, but shall I move on to the rest of the agenda?
Sure.
Any questions on any of the other reports, monthly management report? I guess we're not doing any policies tonight, right? Yeah, okay. Any questions on the monthly management report? Any other issues or updates of the NHA from you, Cheryl? I have one.
Okay.
Okay, so, I received an email, earlier this week, believe it or not, from DHCD or EOHLC, moving up their deadline date for renewing executive directors' contracts. And as hard as it may be, it's coming up on 20 months, which is, we had a 20-month new executive director, first-time executive director contract with Cheryl, which was the 12 months plus the extra months that needed to get it synced up with the end of our fiscal year, which is December 31st. And I had that on my radar screen, except that they moved up the date that we deadline for, submitting a contract renewal to November 1st. So this has now become the second reason why we need a special board meeting, because we didn't have time to put anything on the agenda or, post the agenda and provide the materials to the board members. I just wanted to give you a heads up that when we do schedule this special board meeting, that is another item that'll be on the agenda. This weekend, we'll get out a packet. I looked briefly through all the guidance that we got from DHCD. It's no different than it was 20 months ago. Other than the salary schedules have been updated for inflation. And the only other major difference is we can do up to a 3-year employment contract instead of a 1-year employment contract. And that's, at the discretion of the board acting as a whole, one way or the other. So just a heads up, is I guess what I wanted to give. We also have our normal performance evaluation and salary review process coming up in the next couple of meetings as well. So again, not on the agenda for tonight. This is just a heads up to the board members, and I'll pass it along to Jim and of course Janice as well. Here. Okay. I think we're on discussion on creating a consent agenda. Is that something you want to take here?
Yes, so the consent agenda, most town boards have a consent agenda. The school committee also has a consent agenda, and items are on the consent agenda that we don't have to necessarily discuss. One of them could be the meeting minutes, financial report, other things that would then be voted on by unanimous consent. We would certainly put items in the consent agenda, for example, if it's the board's consideration that we should put meeting minutes in the consent agenda, financial report, donations, those items would go into the consent agenda. The chair would say, the next item is the consent agenda. Does anyone want to take anything out of order or out of that agenda? And if not, those items would be voted on by unanimous consent. We don't have to decide that tonight, but I thought it would be a good idea to create a consent agenda to move some of the items along quicker. So this really is just something to think about, and we can bring it up again at our next meeting. Or you can say, no, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Okay, any comments, Penny or Ed? You're on mute, I'm afraid.
We were muted, so.
I don't think I understand what a consent agenda is.
You know, I'm wondering, Cheryl, whether we should send around an example of the recent select board consent agenda
School committee.
and the school committee agenda, and it's a bunch of miscellaneous things that everybody agrees, you know, it has to be approved by the select board. So sometimes it's donations to the, you know, a property to the town or money. Sometimes it's, you know, I don't know, the school committee.
Donations, meeting minutes. things
Meeting
that-
minutes is another one, you know, if you had, you know, if there have 2 or 3 minutes rather than voting on it and discussing each one for individually. What you do is at the beginning of each select board meeting, I guess, school committee meeting, the first agenda item is the consent agenda, which has a half a dozen things on it that are not controversial. There's no issue whatsoever, nothing to be discussed. And they just vote to adopt all, you know, approve all those things in one vote. So it just saves time doing individual discussions and votes.
That would certainly be a good idea.
Why don't we send around examples, you know, for putting in. My guess is Janice probably doesn't know what a consent
We'll send
agenda
it-
looks like, you
Yeah,
know.
we'll send it
And
around.
you'll get the idea, you know, and, okay. I'm gonna move on to page 2 of the agenda. And next we have, the rest of what's going on with the Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative project. So, you have the, first Peabody and AHSC monthly board meeting, with status report in your packet. Basically, it, on the Linden Street redevelopment project, besides the biggie of getting the site plan review, we are now had a second meeting earlier this week, and it looks like they're going to approve our site plan on October 29th, first week after town meeting. So that's good news, and that's going to be in time for us to submit the preliminary application for funding. The only other thing to report that's going on is we've done a half a dozen meetings with town officials introducing the new team, Betsy, you know, Collins and Mike Mattis, and sometimes the construction manager. We just did a meeting with Jessica Downey this morning, which is she's the principal of High Rock School. That went very well. You know, basically getting up to speed there. Any questions or comments from you, Ed and Penny, on that one?
No, thank you.
G2 Seabed Cook Preservation Modernization Project. I think we sort of thoroughly discussed that when we moved the agenda items up at the beginning. And
Yep.
if there are no further questions on what's going on there, I'm going to skip to the Community Preservation Act funding application. So you saw one of the two applications we're considering in the packet. The second one didn't make it into the packet. I wanted that we've been considering, and I wanted to just since it wasn't in the packet, even though it's on the agenda, we can't vote on it tonight. So this is item number 3 or 4 for the special board meeting that we'll have on schedule in a minute. Basically, if you look in your crystal ball with the Peabody AHSE team coming up to speed, and once we get the funding application into the state, and the final funding application goes in January or February, then we sit around and wait. There's not, you know, relatively speaking, as hard as this is to believe, there's nothing to do. And we have a new team driving the bus, so to speak. And should we be so fortunate as to get funded in the first round, we won't find out about that until spring, like May 2025 for Linden Chambers, but we may have to wait a year as well. You know, at least 50-50 chance, or if not, more than that, that we would have to wait a year. And our next target of opportunity on the overall strategic plan we have for the Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative is to start looking at what we need to do about High Rock Estates, which we all know is our most geriatric, development built in 1950, 60 remaining, 2 and 3 family bungalows sitting on 25 acres of land. And so the thinking, looking into the crystal ball, is not right away, but this time next year, we might be wanting to turn our attention to what we do with that 25 acres and those 60 units, which are, very long in the tooth and overdue for something. Well, the work we've done to date, before we sort of put it on the shelf, we did an existing conditions report that confirmed that we can get the money for redeveloping High Rock Estates as a tax credit project, similar to what we're doing for Linden Street. The money's there if we do a repositioning and conversion to the Section 8 program. And so that's good news. That many steps that we've all learned a lot about now in the last couple of years. But then that begs the question, what is it that we do at that property? Do we just redevelop it into 60 more duplexes? So we go from 60 to 120 family duplexes? Or do we do something different than that? Do we maybe have more of a denser townhouse development with a cluster zoning, create a public park in that area, which is sort of a more modern way of doing things? Another question would be, is it all, let's say we go to 180 units. Is it all deeply affordable housing, or is it some of it mixed income? In other words, you have 50, 80%, 100%, because the idea of doing a sort of mixed income development with lots of affordable housing is you're not creating a ghetto, and I don't mean that literally, but all affordable housing. You just have a whole bunch of neighbors that are living together, no different, in units that are no different than anybody else's. What would we want to do there? Also, the MBTA Communities Act initiative, we'll know what gets voted next week at town meeting and what's cooking there. And maybe that'll change how we want to redevelop that 25 acres. All that's to be said, that there really is, what is missing is an urban land use study, which you'd hire a consultant to say, you've got 25 acres, we have to, at the minimum, replace the 60 units of affordable housing that we have now. We want to maybe double that, but what's the best way of developing this? And what would the town buy into what we want to do? And so you'll see I sent out an email late this afternoon when I realized it wasn't in the packet, the draft CPA funding application for, $150,000 to fund a study that would start in the fall of 2025 and go for a year probably, and engage the planning board and the select board and the neighbors and the schools system. Because if we're adding more kids to the schools, then they're going to want to know about that, and be participant, and ourselves, and the Parks and Rec Committee, if there's going to be a park, and et cetera, to sort of figure that all out. So that's what this concept is in the document I sent out this afternoon. And open, we don't have two of our commissioners here tonight anyway, but Penny and Ed, welcome any thoughts or comments you might have on that.
Well, obviously to have some thought given to what you're describing makes a great deal of sense. I certainly would support that.
It's nice to know there are some options. I kind of like that townhouse idea with a park, but it would require a study, certainly.
And we'd have to get people to buy in, Needham people don't like to change very quickly. as we know, but, one thing that's really changed in, as far as I could tell is there, everybody now knows there's a sort of a housing crisis, and there's no affordable housing at any income level in Needham unless you happen to be, a multi-millionaire. And, so where do we fit into that, we have to sort of look at what's the right answer for the town. And we have to win over people in the town to whatever that right answer is. It's not just the right answer for the Needham Housing Authority. And by right, we could go build 60 more duplexes and, we'd be done. That's it. But that might not be the right answer. And, it was the right answer in 2005. It may not be the right answer in 2026. So in 25, 26. So, yeah. Go ahead, Betty.
I just said, so a study would be a good thing.
Good thinking. Okay, we also have the Cambridge Housing Authority monthly report in there. Any questions from that?
I thought it was excellent.
And we've turned over the PRI budget to our Peabody HSC partners, and they're looking through it right now. So that's where we're at right there. All right, moving on to agenda item 8. Other than what we've already discussed, is there any other Cook's After School program update we want to talk about here?
I think we want to talk about the memorandum from Commissioner Scheidler.
Yeah, we have that. So Ed reminded me that we have a policy mission statement and goal statement that has been on the table for the last couple of months or so, 3 months maybe. Anything else from you?
No, Commissioner Flanagan and I are embarking on a study of the Cooksbridge After School program, and whether or not, what's the feasibility of the program? Should we keep it in the neighborhood? Should we reach out to partners who could take on the after-school aspect of the program? So he and I are studying that. We're meeting with Karen Bourne. We're meeting with school administrators in terms of what's actually going on in the school now. And then we hope to report back to the board our findings. Currently, the after-school program is open once a week for the month of October, and that's on Tuesdays. And Lori has opened the program with the students and engaging them in activities. There'll be a Halloween party there at the end of the month. And we have some of our community partners joining in on that activity. So, and those community partners are from the Family and Youth Services Department. November, we'll have pottery classes that will take place Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I believe. And then there's a group from the high school that has a homework club that have reached out to Lori, and they will engage with our students as well during November and December up to school vacation. So that's what's going on. Are there any questions?
Any comments or questions, Penny and Ed?
And then, thank you. Vote on this policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't forgot the policy, but that's been on your report there.
Okay.
We have a huge resource in the Gorse Mills, and you had such a successful pottery session last year. It seemed to me that you could branch out and have another type of art this year rather than repeat the same thing. But it looks like you've committed to the pottery by now. Also, Lori hasn't done any grant applications. I knew that there was a deadline of yesterday for the local thing, so I wrote a grant too. So they're going to be. I didn't realize that Lori was going to do that. I think she should have told me since I've been doing it for 2.5 years, but they may be a little confused at the local cultural council now because there are 2 applications in. I'm sure they'll only be able to give one.
Yes, we did submit that application. And the purpose of the grant, I guess, is to bring in local artists to work with our residents on different types of art media, mosaic, design, etc. And then there will be a display of that work in the community room as well. I don't have the details in front of me, but she did meet that deadline of October 16th and submitted that grant request.
That sounds like a nice idea. That's not what I asked for, but I like it.
Yeah, the
So-
mosaic piece of
Nice.
it interests me greatly.
So,
So we'll keep you updated though and let you know where we are with that and how that plays out.
so Ed, you wanted to, I think you suggested that you wanted to bring up the mission policy mission statement and goal document for approval, is that right, tonight?
Are you listening?
I'm sorry, it didn't sound like what I wanted to talk about.
Or what did you want, I'm
I
reading the
just-
title
I-
of the document here.
Oh,
Yeah.
on whether or not we would accept my proposal for a policy and mission statement for grades K through 6.
Yes, that's what it said. I'm sorry, I didn't say the gate.
I'm sorry,
I'm
I got
referring to that document, yeah.
Please repeat that. I couldn't understand you.
It is, it's entitled, its full title is the Needham Housing Authority Cooks After School Program for Grades K through 6 Policy, Mission, Statement, and Goal. And I just said policy, mission, statement, and goal the first time, but that's what it says in the title of this document here.
Yes, I would like to bring that up for a vote.
Well, are you gonna make a motion?
I'd like to
I made one
make
I made one at the last meeting that was
All right.
postponed. I'll make the
Table.
motion.
All right, so,
I
Yeah.
move that we accept this proposal for a policy and mission statement and goal to be accepted as our objective.
and second,
Seconded for me.
Second with discussion.
yeah, of course, always, yeah. So now we have it on the table. It's off the table and actively in discussion, Ed, so, go ahead. We're missing 2 commissioners here tonight, but go ahead, Penny.
Well, from what Cheryl just said, she and Jim are working on a whole new approach to how to handle that community room and that after-school idea, partially because of the population, I presume. So I'm not sure that it applies now, unless you and Jim can come up with something that melds with what this suggestion is.
So as I said, we're studying the homework program. So
Yeah.
the study that we are engaging in, we haven't made any definitive
Well, but Penny
decision.
makes a good point, it is, you maybe come to the same conclusions, or you may come to different conclusions, and maybe the policy statement needs to be, updated to reflect that, but we don't know yet,
That's correct.
is what I hear Penny saying. Is that right, Penny?
Yes, but I also would like to just interject that in your discussion with Jim, what seemed to be very valuable in the past was that these children felt very special, that they were not part of the public school after-school program. They had their own special program. And I think that made them work harder and become a team and be very proud of themselves. So I do think that that has to be part of your discussion.
Yep, of course, we don't have the same cohort of students that we've had in the past, but yes, that's definitely part of our discussion. And myself, as a former resident and with my now 31-year-old son attending the homework club, I agree with you. Kids enthusiastically attended, and my son, I will never forget the enthusiastic look on his face as he sat at the table ready to do his homework. But you know, that was then. We don't have the number of students that participate now, so we're just sort of evaluating what's the best next steps to take.
I understand that. I also saw in your write-up, though, that you're considering including housing resident children from across town.
No, we cannot provide, it's currently, as it stands, and with permission from ECC, it's a drop-in program. And so, you know, the folks from across town wouldn't be able to drop in and out unless their parents pick them up. We have to make those kinds of arrangements. It's something that has to be studied and considered, I guess.
So the goal is to have something for the High Rock kids, but it can't be in the present incarnation because our waiver letter does not give us
Right.
permission to do
Yeah,
that.
understand that.
But we should be doing something for the
Yeah.
school. What is that something else that we should be doing for the High Rock kids?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so I just also want to note that during that time period, when my son was at the Elliott School, teachers did come to the homework program and offered homework assistance to the students, and they were excited about that, and they loved that, and that happened for a year. The following year, the school applied for Title I funds, and Needham, the Elliott School, became a Title I school. It's the only elementary school in Needham that is a Title I school, and it receives Title I money for economically developing for households who would have a economic deficiency. So, you know, we're just exploring what the school's role can be in this as well, since Elliott is a Title I school based on the economic conditions of families.
Interesting. I will say parenthetically, when I mentioned I met with Jessica Downey this morning, the principal of the High Rock School, which is all sixth grade right now, the sixth grade center. And one of the things she said is the school is going to turn back into an elementary school, High Rock. You know, they're going to finish renovating Pollard and add to Pollard so they can have the sixth grade rejoin the Pollard campus.
Yeah.
So you'd have the normal sort of sixth, seventh, eighth middle school. And then what the vision is that the High Rock will turn back into a neighborhood elementary school. And of course, if that happens for our High Rock kids, that's a huge benefit to them because they all have not right now they have to go to Newman, you know. Which is really not walking distance very easily from here.
Right.
And they'd have something that was just down the hill from them, so. Just saying that came up this morning. So, and you know, would you like to continue with this motion here to a vote, or do you have any comments or on top of what Penny said, or what?
As part of the discussion, if we don't have the population to support a K-6 program currently, we certainly can postpone it until we have the appropriate, a reasonable number of participants, and that makes sense. It sounds like there's no effort on the part of the executive director to perpetuate the K-6 situation that was so successful and received so much recognition that I'm really quite disappointed in the prior agreement that the Friends of the Cooks After School program would be consulted on what was taking place, and there's been absolutely no effort to include the Friends of Cooks After School program. But we could go ahead if there's an interest in adapting this as a policy and a mission statement, so that in the future, if we do have the population to support the program, we would then have a guideline and a mission statement to guide it in place.
So you'd like a vote?
So therefore, I think it would be a good idea to vote on the proposal and have that in place or not in place as we go forward.
To be amended as necessary when we evolve the program. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd go for that. But it would be in place and ready when the population
Materializes.
makes it a sensible thing to do.
Well, we don't have Penny, Janice and Jim with us, but I'm happy to support you so you know that we can go forward with this. And then, subject to amendment and updating as we kind of evolve the program to take the take care of the kids that are there. Yeah.
Jim and I did also together thought that this was a good policy to move forward with.
We'll say it out louder so everybody can hear.
Jim Flanagan, Vice Chair Flanagan, and I thought that this policy mission statement was a good policy mission statement to go forward with.
Okay, so any further discussion? And we're getting close to the end of the agenda. I hear a motion in a second. I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Okay, and that, good luck on your study.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited about the idea, also thinking about how we can, extend the program to High Rock. We got really killed off. We really got clobbered by the pandemic. We talking about this before the pandemic, and now, we can go forward that way. So let's proceed to, where are we now? New business. So another thing, new business that got out very late to the board meeting this afternoon is Jim has been working on the statement of support for the MBTA Community Act articles that are up for next week's consideration for the town meeting. And Penny and Ed, you will have just seen this, earlier this afternoon. And normally we would want to defer, if our timing wasn't against us, we'd want to defer this to the next board meeting. But we're run out of timing on this. Just a lot of balls in the air here. I think Penny and we don't have Janice here. I know Jim supports this. Because he was the original author of the first draft of this. Penny and Ed, what's your thinking and where do you stand with just the general question of whether the housing authority should take a position with respect to this very important housing initiative that's on the town meeting agenda next week? Do you think it's appropriate for the town housing authority to do or not?
I frankly do. I think that as I said in my response to your email, the town has been very supportive of us. To the best of my knowledge, I don't see anything objective that I would object to. I'm sorry. I don't see anything.
Yeah.
So I am very much in favor of supporting. If we send a letter of support, I think that's a great idea.
And Penny, do you share that feeling? Is that a yes?
Yes, I do, I said.
I didn't quite hear it. Okay. So the idea was to try, it's a very complicated subject that took Jim 2 pages to write up about. And I boiled it down to 1 page. Because who reads the second page on these things, right, when you send them in? do you think, are there any other reasons, so the basic reasons in this statement of support are that we have these two compliance plans. We have the basic compliant plan, which doesn't really change anything. It adds a couple of hundred units maybe over the next 10 years. Or the neighborhood housing plan, which is more ambitious, that could go, result in up to 1,600 incremental units over the next 10 years. And it then goes on to say we support the neighborhood plan, the more, aggressive, bigger plan, because it's the best housing strategy for Needham and for us. And why is that? Well, we have tremendous pressure on our waiting list. If people can apply up to 80% of AMI, not that they necessarily do. Our residents are typically lower, but anything that takes pressure off of our waiting lists and our housing inventory is good for us. And the second is that, for 75 years, we've been all about creating more affordable housing units in Needham. And, we feel like we know a bit, one or two things about that. We have a little bit of experience with that, with hundreds of families that have done that. And so we support this because this has the greatest potential of creating more affordable housing units in Needham, number one. And number two, one of the provisions of both of the base plan and the neighborhood plan is the requirement that 12.5 units, 12.5% of all the units built are affordable. So that's another couple hundred units that must be affordable, even if the other ones are market rate units. So does that sound like the right argument to make? If we give the power pen back over to Jim to finalize this and get it in tomorrow. And is there any other arguments that we're missing, Penny and Ed? Can you think of anything else we could add to that?
Thorough to me.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Well, on Jim's behalf, I will make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of this draft or something close to this draft to town meeting members tomorrow, which is sort of the last minute, but it will not be too much the last minute. And supporting Articles 10 and 11, the adoption of them, the neighborhood housing plan for compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
And then by Mr. Scheidler, hearing no further discussion, I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Okay, and I'll let Tim know that it's been passed. Here's a copy of that, by the way.
Thank you. Oh, I have it.
You already got it. Okay, super. All right, we come to one last agenda item, which is scheduling the board meeting, the special board meeting where we'll have several items on it. So it's not going to be a 5 or 10 minute board meeting. I suspect it's going to be more like a closer to an hour board meeting. It turns out with Cheryl's schedule, she's out at the end of next week, and Jim Flanagan's schedule, which I checked with, that maybe Monday, the 28th works the best. Jim cannot do between in midday, he can't do 11 a.m. to noon. So what would be a good time, do you think, for us to do this on Monday on your schedules, Ed and Penny?
We're completely flexible.
That day,
Right.
in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. How about you, Cheryl? How's your schedule? You always have something on your schedule.
Yeah, I'm flexible as well.
Hmm?
I'm flexible.
You're flexible as well. Okay, well, so we're talking about Monday, the 21st.
8.
28.
That's all right, off on that. And I have 12:15. Oh no, that's not me. That's my wife. So Just to be on the safe side, should we do it mid-afternoon, 2 o'clock, or should we do it at the end of the
No,
afternoon?
2 o'clock is great.
How's 2 o'clock? Do you, Ed, Penny? Sounds good.
Yeah.
2 o'clock is fine.
2 p.m. next meeting.
Will it be a Zoom meeting?
Yes, I think,
Virtual meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
10:28. Okay, there are no more agenda items. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Ed, and a second. Second from Commissioner Kirk. Following the roll, Rich Foster votes aye.
Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice
Good night.
evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.